Yeah. So we'll be talking about multiple myeloma. So you see, this is the diagram that depicts two series of the cells that are formed in the blood. So the blood stem cell divides into either a myeloid or a lymphoid series, and the lymphoid series gives rise to plasma cell, which forms the antibodies in the body, which we are going to talk about today. So this is the plasma cell with a large cytoplasm and a condensed nucleus, which has an intertwined chromatin material. So this is an oval shaped plasma cell, and this is how you recognize it. Okay, and so we're going to talk about monoclonal neoplasms today. The common progenitor being the late B lymphocyte lineage, and which secrete a monoclonal IgG or IgG fragment. So there are various types of plasma cell disorders. The most common being multiple myeloma, and then there are other plasma cell disorders which are not so common but cannot be missed. See, even primary amyloidosis is also a monoclonal neoplasm. Waldenstone microglobulinemia, heavy chain disease, MGUS, POEMS, and solitary plasmacytoma. We'll talk about them. And these are the various synonyms that we use to talk about monoclonal neoplasms or plasma cell disorders. You can call them anything. You can call them monoclonal gammopathies, paraproteinemia, plasma cell dyscrasias, and dysproteinemia. The most common and most acceptable term being plasma cell disorder. So monoclonal immunoglobulin is also called an M component. Why? Because it's with reference to the myeloma causing immunoglobulin. So that is why it is called the M component. So whenever immunoglobulins rise of particular type in the blood, they form an M band. And these are because they itself, immunoglobulins are itself very large. They do not get secreted in the urine, but excess free light chains part of the antibodies are formed, which are secreted in the urine and are called Bence-Jones proteins. Rarely, in only heavy chains are synthesized, and they are not much secreted in the urine. And in case of light chain synthesis, one light chain is synthesized more than the other light chain. That's why it's a clonal neoplasm, which is either a kappa chain or a lambda chain, as we'll learn in the slides to come. So if you have to measure total light chains, you measure by the total assay, which tells you about all the light chains, and then you measured free light chains, which tells you either a free light chain kappa or a free light chain lambda, and then you can calculate the ratio, and I'll tell you what ratio is significant to suspect a myeloma. So multiple myeloma, the major plasma cell disorder that we know about, is a malignant proliferation of plasma cells derived from single clone. And the major symptoms or the signs that the patient presents to you with are dependent upon these abnormalities that are found, which are lytic bone lesions, organ dysfunction, hypercalcemia, anemia, immune abnormalities. Okay. CRAB is is a short form that I will talk about later, and it is the details of it I'll talk about later, but it is basically calcium, renal, anemia, and bone. And these are the four major things that you have to think about whenever you are suspecting multiple myeloma in a patient. Okay, and the median survival of such patients who have been diagnosed with multiple myeloma obviously depends upon the stage, but the median survival is 7 to 10 years. It is not that uncommon. 1% of all cancer deaths are related to multiple myeloma. That is because there are a lot of good therapies now available. In fact, stem cell bone marrow transplant is also available for multiple myeloma now. We'll talk about that in the management part. And about 30,000 new cases in the US are found every year. Males are more commonly affected than females. Median age is 69 to 70 years, and it is very uncommon below 40 years. I recently admitted a patient of 75 years, male gentleman, with back pain, and we diagnosed him with multiple myeloma. So don't suspect it much in less than 40 years of age, but I mean, it is rare, but do not miss it also. More common in blacks rather than whites, and family history is important. Etiology is unknown, but they say that there are some chemicals that make a person prone. So it has been seen more commonly in leather workers, wood workers, petroleum workers, but there has been no chemical that has been found as there has been no causal association found. So causality is still a doubt, but associations have been found. There are a few chromosomal alterations that can be found, and they are used to even diagnose multiple myeloma and find if they are genetically good or bad myelomas to find. Okay, the rearrangement of IGH locus and various proto-oncogenes and IL-6 mediated proliferation is the main uh, part of the pathogenesis of multiple myeloma. And you must remember that once a myeloma cell is formed, it also secretes IL-6 itself. So it helps its own friends to grow more. And that is why tumors, including myeloma, are dangerous because they don't need the body's structure and function anymore to produce more tumor cells. So they self-propagate because they secrete the chemicals themselves that are used to propagate their own population. And talking about pathogenesis, myeloma derived MIP or macrophage inflammatory protein upregulates rankle. As you all know in bone pathology, rankle is the one that activates osteoclasts and causes destruction of the bone. That is what leads to bone resorption, hypercalcemia, and fractures in the case of multiple myeloma. So this looks like a complex diagram, but it really just tells us that a dysregulated MYC protein leads to secretion of rankle, which activates the osteoclasts and hence leads to bone resorption, hypercalcemia, and the various features that predominate in multiple myeloma. So I was talking about CRAB, which is calcium, renal, anemia, and bone. The most important feature is bone pain. So the patient complains that he has pain in the bones. If the patient says that, never ignore that because people with other generalized pain disorders do not generally say they have pain inside the bones. Various features of anemia, weight loss, neurological symptoms, symptoms of deranged renal function, symptoms of hypercalcemia, features of infection. Never forget that multiple myeloma makes your body prone to a lot of infections because it just makes your body's immune system completely defunct. And sometimes you might rarely do a bone marrow for something else and you find that the patient has multiple myeloma. Bone pain might happen in the back or the chest. That is because these are the marrow containing bones, the sternum as well as the spine, and it's induced by movement. Obviously, in the age group that it happens, anyway, the height is reduced because of the osteoporosis of the spine. But a very rapid change in height must tell you that there might be a collapsed vertebra and could be due to a multiple myeloma that is happening in the spine. So you uh, must not ignore a patient's change in height or sudden stooping of the posture of the patient. Now, bone lesions are more common, obviously, in the bones which have bone marrow in them. Vertebral column, rib, skull, pelvis, femur, clavicle, and scapula. And the malignancy starts in the medullary cavity and starts eroding the outer part of the bone, reaches the cancellous, and then destroys the bony cortex and ultimately leads to fractures. Now, anemia is mostly normocytic normochromic type and due to bone marrow replacement and renal failure. This is so there are two reasons for anemia. One is that the bone marrow is being replaced by umpteen number of plasma cells, and the other is that hypercalcemia and light chains cause renal failure, which leads to anemia of chronic disease because erythropoietin synthesis decreases. Anemia mostly causes fatigue and pallor, but other symptoms like palpitation, breathlessness, and you on signs you might find a hyperdynamic circulation. Renal disease is it may be the presenting manifestation. In fact, a patient who has come with sudden worsening of renal function, serum protein electrophoresis to look for myeloma should be among the top of the list to see if the myeloma is going on because it is something that you can halt with treatment. So two major causes are light chain nephropathy, so the deposition of light chain in the glomerulus, and hypercalcemia. Other causes are concurrent amyloidosis. Light chain can get deposited in the interstitium also, and drugs related to myeloma, or because some patients might take drugs due to the bone pain that they have. Okay, now hypercalcemia may be asymptomatic, uh, but as you remember, in cases of hyperparathyroidism, when hypercalcemia is quite overt, people can have constipation, fatigue, depression. In fact, depression is a very, very important sign. Do not forget that people with hypercalcemia can present with depression, only and only depression. Polyuria, polydipsia, dehydration, anorexia, nausea, abdominal pain. Remember the abdominal moans part in hyperparathyroidism. Muscle weakness, bone pain can happen due to hypercalcemia also. Confusion, stupor, coma, hypertension, renal stones, and renal failure. It is a very extensive list, and most of these symptoms are vague. So you have to have a very high index of suspicion when you are suspecting hypercalcemia, either in hyperparathyroidism or in a case of plasma cell disorder. Now, infections, obviously, if the patient is having is having recurrent bacterial infections, you should suspect that there is something else going on once you've ruled out the most common immunodeficiency disorders. Neurological can either be due to mechanical issues or due to the issues in the nerve. So cord compression and radicular pains can be due to the bone fractures and the disc disease that accompanies it. But peripheral neuropathy itself is due to deposition of IgM. So peripheral neuropathy is not very common, but it is mostly seen in IgM. Most literature does not mention this, but Harrison's does mention this, that IgM type of multiple myeloma, which is very rare, which is almost only less than almost 0.5% only, is the one that is majorly responsible for peripheral neuropathy. Hypercalcemia can also cause neurological symptoms like lethargy, weakness, depression, and confusion. And because there is so many plasma cells and so many light chains in the blood that are flowing, the blood becomes viscous. Once it becomes viscous, it flows slowly through the circulation, and that is when it starts having an effect on the cerebral circulation, causing headache, fatigue, visual disturbances, ataxia, vertigo. Okay, it can also rarely lead to coma. Now, this is another special form of plasma cell disorder, which is a solitary collection of plasma cells. So, it's an extramedullary plasmacytoma. You will biopsy this and find plasma cell disorder, but in such a case, if you do a bone marrow, you will not find any bone marrow involvement. And such patients generally do very well even without treatment. Okay, so when do you suspect in your OPD you have patients with anemia coming all the time? When do you suspect it's a myeloma? So one is age group. It's very important. If you find a patient above the age of 60 years, male patient especially, who has come with unexplained anemia and you've done a peripheral smear and it is normocytic normochromic, please think of myeloma as a top differential, because once missed and it reaches a stage where it starts causing neurological symptoms, it's really difficult to come back through it. So symptoms and signs of hypercalcemia, which I said are very vague, and a sudden worsening of renal functions. Mind you, people with diabetes, hypertension might have a myeloma on top, so do not always ascribe your deranged renal function to diabetes or hypertension. Always look at a sudden deterioration of renal function with suspicion, even if it's in a diabetic or a hypertensive. A proteinuria. Now remember, there is a lot of proteinuria, but there is not much albuminuria. So if in your lab you can have two dipsticks, with one which checks the protein in the urine and the other that checks the albumin in the urine. And if there is a large difference between the proteinuria and the albuminuria, always suspect that there is another protein being secreted. Okay, so if you do a dipstick test and you find high proteinuria and then you send a microalbumin in the urine and you find a very low microalbumin, you should always be suspicious that there is another protein being secreted in the urine, and that is because that's the Bence-Jones protein, which is not albumin, but it is still protein. Hence, a proteinuria, albuminuria difference in the urine is very suspicious of myeloma. A peripheral neuropathy can happen, as I explained, mostly in the IgM type. Unexplained fractures, especially in males in the older age group. Females in the older age group, anyways, have a lot of osteoporosis. So, unexplained fractures generally do not lead us to myeloma there. Symptoms of hyperviscosity again are very, very vague, and recurrent infections. How do you diagnose and how do you prognosticate? So what do you think you will see in the CBC? If you can answer in the chat. So CBC is anemia. Anyone wants to answer? Peripheral smear. I'll come with the answers on the next slide. Okay. There is a difficulty with finding the chat option also. Anyway, so yeah, so normocytic normochromic anemia, Aditya, great. And the peripheral smear, okay. So this is anemia, normocytic normochromic. Peripheral smear shows normocytic normochromic. Sometimes, rarely, it can show plasma cells, and it causes something called a rouleau formation. Now you look at the picture on the side. Rouleau is a stack of coins, basically. So RBCs, once they are coated with a lot of antibodies, they start sticking to each other, and this is how they form. This is how they form into stacks or piles of coins, as you say. So the creatinine is raised, calcium is raised. LFT, you will find that the albumin globulin ratio is reversed. That is because globulins are secreted in extra amounts, and the serum protein electrophoresis generally, not necessarily, but generally shows an M spike which is more than 3 gram per deciliter. I'll show you photos of that. You remember I mentioned free light chains also. So a ratio of less than 0.26 or more than 1.65, because either the kappa may be increased or the lambda may be increased. So what you put on the numerator and denominator determines what the ratio will be. So this is a very low value. Actually, you can find up to 50 times and 60 times difference between both the light chains. Urine, you see a lot of proteinuria. Remember, proteinuria is more important than albuminuria. There is a difference between that. And marrow, you find plasma cells in abundance. So look at, this is a peripheral smear again. Rarely you can see a plasma cell, but rouleau formation can be seen. Obviously, you need a very good technician to identify this. They might just say clumping of RBCs and leave that. But if it's a good technician, he will report rouleau formation, and then you can do a bone marrow. So look at this protein electrophoresis, and this is the patient serum. This is the normal serum on the top, and there is no M band seen. Whereas in the bottom figure, you see that there is an M band marked with an arrow, and it is the IgG type, which is the second. And if you look what chains are secreted, it is mostly the kappa chains over here. So this is a kappa type of IgG type of multiple myeloma that you see. And because it is so dark, this mostly is more than 3 gram per deciliter of protein. So the density of the band that you find, or the spike that you see, tells you what is the gram per deciliter of protein that you found in that band. So this is again gamma globulin band, so M band, which is almost equal to the albumin. That is why there is a reversal. So total globulins are these, and then they are more than the albumin. So a albumin globulin ratio is reversed. So look at the first figure, which is normal. So this is how a normal serum protein electrophoresis looks like. This is a polyclonal increase. Mostly you will see this in chronic infections. So for example, if you are suspecting an autoimmune disease, I generally have seen a lot of this polyclonal increase in Sjogren's and SLE syndrome. Mostly in Sjogren's, you see that there is a polyclonal increase. Okay, and monoclonal, if you see, this is a kappa spike over here. That is how you differentiate if it's a myeloma or a chronic inflammation going on. As I said, IgG is the most common type of immunoglobulin secreted in myeloma. IgA is 20%, IgG 50%, light chain only 20%, IgM is only 0.5%. They are not secreted exclusively always, but if they are exclusively secreted, these are the percentages. And in up to 2 to 3 percentages of myeloma, you do not detect any M protein. So if you have a very, very strong suspicion, do not just go by strong serum electrophoresis. So this is a bone marrow. Look at the plasma cell. This bone marrow is full of plasma cells, and other cells you can see only in rarity. How do you investigate such a patient? So you've done a peripheral sphere, CBC, LFT, creatinine, urine protein, Bence-Jones proteins if you want to, serum protein electrophoresis, and now you want to do a skeletal survey. Now, traditionally, skeletal survey has been done using X-rays. The most important being, again, you have to remember where is it more common. So it is most common in the sternum and the spine. So a chest and a spine X-ray. Humerus femur, the top parts sometimes show marrow deposits, so that is where you do, and that is where you find punched out lesions. And the skull table is full of bone marrow, and that is where you typically see the punched out lesions that we've been taught all throughout MBBS. Whole body CT, MRI, but PET CT is the gold standard to detect any such marrow lesions. It shows the marrow very well. Okay, so these on the X-ray, you see these are punched out lesions on the left of your screen. There is a punched out lesions in the skull, and this is a collapse of the vertebra, which is compressing the cord on the right. See, punched out lesion of multiple myeloma. This is seen in the skull. This is in the arm that you see, and other long bones also can have punched out lesions. Again, in the spine, sometimes on the X-ray, you can see punched out lesions, but you have to be very, very careful in looking. You should just not have a glance at the X-ray. You should look for them. And on the MRI on the right, you can see they are much more clear. This is the PET CT. Okay, so look at this left image where there are all see, look at this hip bone which is full of marrow. That is where we do a bone marrow aspiration also, and these are all the deposits. This is where the plasma cell is growing, and that is why it is coming so active on the PET CT. Now, prognostication. Remember, some people use beta to macroglobulin and LDH for diagnosing multiple myeloma, but that's not a good thing to do. But it is good to prognosticate using these. So once you've diagnosed multiple myeloma, you can use beta 2 macroglobulin LDH to prognosticate how is the patient going to behave to treatment. And I will show a table which shows how do you prognosticate. So this is a table. This is albumin, beta 2 microglobulin, high risk cytogenetics, and LDH. So when they are very high, it is stage 3. When they are very low, it is stage 1. And when they're not fitting into both, it's stage 2. You can learn this later if you want to, but you don't have to. And see, there is 82% survival with treatment, obviously, of stage 1. So that is not a bad figure for a malignancy that is so dreaded. Okay, so how do you diagnose? What is the criteria? So the most important and the major criteria that you have to fulfill is a clonal bone marrow plasma cell of more than 10%. So I was suspecting a patient last year of multiple myeloma. I did a marrow and the patient had 6% bone marrow plasma cells. Now I will tell you what that patient has is a mixture of something, but that patient does not have MGUS also. It has some, he has something else. So you have to have more than 10% to classify that patient as a myeloma, and any of the myeloma defining events, which could either be an evidence of end organ dysfunction. Remember CRAB. So calcium of more than 11, renal failure, creatinine more than 2, anemia less than 10, and bone lesions. So one or more osteolytic lesions. So you have to have one evidence of that, or any of the biomarkers of malignancy. For example, if you have a clonal marrow plasma of more than 60%, you don't need anything else. You have a diagnosis of myeloma directly. If you have a free light chain ratio of more than 100 with a clonal bone marrow of more than 10%, right? And if you have a more than 10% plasma cells in bone marrow and one focal lesion on MRI, which is 5 millimeters or more. So this is an extensive thing, but it's not that difficult. So most important is you have to do a bone marrow. You see it's more than 10%, and 90% of the cases you'll find either of these of the CRAB criteria, right? So a bone marrow of more than 10% plasma cells with either of CRAB, you'll be able to confidently diagnose multiple myeloma and hand over the patient to the medical oncologist for treatment. Okay, so treatment, our goal is prolongation of survival. And remember, in stage 4, if you prognosticate, you have 82% survival, 5-year survival, which is not bad at all. Because anyways, most of the patients are diagnosed after the age of 70, 75. So if at the age of 75, if you determine that the patient will have an 82% chance of survival for the next 5 years, despite having a major malignancy in the body, it's a very big relief for the family. You have to improve the quality of the life. That is what the goal of the treatment is. Once you start treating, the number of new fractures tremendously reduces. And it is divided into 3 stages: induction, consolidation, and maintenance. Now, induction, I just remember these drug names because I'm not going to treat such a patient. I have to diagnose and hand over to a hematologist or a medical oncologist. And there are triple drugs used for 4 to 6 weeks: proteasome inhibitors, immunomodulators, and steroids. A doublet regime is used in frail and elderly, where dexamethasone and bortezomib are used because they might have side effects to other drugs. Stem cell transplant, especially in young people, is now the gold standard, but you have to find who's eligible or not. I will talk about ineligibility. Now, eligible patients are, there is a different eligibility criteria in various countries. India has not defined it, but in Europe it is less than 65 years of age. But in US, I think even below 77 years of age, they do it. And then when you do a transplant, you do 2 more years of lenalidomide or bortezomib because you have to consolidate what you've done. So a stem cell transplant ineligible patient. So one is eligible, so you do a transplant and you give 2 years of drugs. But an ineligible patient is the one, for example, in the US, age more than 77, patient who has frank cirrhosis. Now, this is an European performance index of 3 or more 4. You can read about it. And NYHA 3 or more 4. So basically, these people who are quite frail and who can't walk about, they are not good candidates because they do not show good results. Renal failure, remember, is not a contraindication of stem cell transplant. Any stage of renal failure, including people on dialysis, can undergo stem cell transplant at any stage. Okay, 12 to 18 more cycles of triple drug are given in these cases after the induction regimen, and maintenance lenalidomide or bortezomib is given mostly lifelong. So this is from Harrison's. Just remember, newly diagnosed, if there are myeloma defining events, if there are not there, then it's a smoldering myeloma. I'll talk about it. But if there are, so one of either the CRAB or the other biochemical criteria. If the patient is transplant eligible, do an induction, do a transplant, and then maintain for 2 years. If the patient is transplant ineligible, induction and maintenance, most of the maintenance in this case is for lifelong. What is MGUS, or monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance? M protein is less than 3 gram, bone marrow is less than 10%. So my patient in such a case probably had MGUS. The only difference in this case is he had one of the CRAB criteria, two actually. He had some renal failure and he had anemia also. So I could not classify him as MGUS. So I'm following up, and probably he will progress to multiple myeloma sometime in his life. Okay, so smoldering myeloma is the one which has plasma cells of 10 to 60%. Remember, if you have more than 60% plasma cells in bone marrow, it is multiple myeloma. You don't need any other criteria. So a monoclonal protein plasma cell of more than 10% in the bone marrow with absence of myeloma defining events, it is called a smoldering myeloma. A smoldering means it is developing. So you have to be very careful. Remember, in MGUS, the progression is 1% per year, but in smoldering myeloma, the progression is 10% per year. So every 3 to 6 months, you have to keep following up the patient. That patient might develop myeloma anytime. So it is truly a pre-malignant state in this case. But unfortunately, you can't start treatment in such cases. Solitary plasmacytoma, I told you, normal marrow, biopsy proven solitary lesion of bone or soft tissue. Normal skeletal survey and OMD. Our meeting is ending in 5 minutes. Okay. POEMS is another form of monoclonal gammopathy, and it stands for polyneuropathy, organomegaly, endocrinopathy, monoclonal plasma cell proliferation, and skin changes. You can go through this, is not very important. It is very rare. Waldenstone microglobulinemia is another form of plasma cell disorder, which is of the IgM type. Okay, and it causes lymph node enlargement and hepatosplenomegaly. Major clinical syndrome is hyperviscosity. Males are involved more than females. There is involvement of marrow, but there is no cortical bone destruction of the cortical bone. There is neuropathy, and renal disease is not common. These are the various therapies used. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of the presentation. Always remember CRAB, calcium, renal, anemia, and bone. If you ask any patient who comes to you with some vague symptoms, if you ask these four questions, you might be able to find something and might save a life, because myeloma, as I said, if picked up in stage 1, there is 82% survival. But if not treated, there is less than 40 to 50% survival for 5 years. Okay, so this is a cartoon that I always end this presentation with. Bad news that chemo can kill you before the cancer does. The good news is the medical bills and health insurance can kill you before the chemo. So always remember, you are charging the patient. Kappa lambda light chain ratio costs around 6,700 rupees, and serum protein electrophoresis costs around 690 rupees. So I generally do serum protein electrophoresis, as mostly it will come up in 98 to 99% of the cases. If I'm very strongly suspecting and the patient is affording, then only I order a kappa lambda ratio. Thank you.